All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. I'm up here in Michigan with the brother, Israelites. And the subject of the day and the hour we're talking about is why men are not men today. We had a brother up here at this meeting, and he preaches and teaches on his channel about masculinity all the time. And the one thing he said in that meeting is that Pastor Dowell and his men, they are all masculine. They are real, true men. And it's not like we're out here doing anything. We're just doing our job. You know what I'm saying? We're just doing our job as men. So we're going to go around here to the brethren for a second and get their thoughts on why in this matriarchal society that the men seem to be effeminized and seem to be I'm just going to put it like this: more passively feminine than women are. All right, Brother Kabir.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. What do you think the issue and the trouble is today?
I think that
Because there's not, the man is not in the home. The father is literally not in the home today. All right.
I think that the reason why men are not men today is because we live in this culture, in this Roman Greek culture, which is a forced monogamous culture, and I think it just creates a atmosphere, a breeding ground for effeminate men, and but in what we learn here in Stray, what I've learned here is that everything should be revolved around the men, just like everything revolves around Christ. Everything should revolve around the man. So being in a patriarch system where everything revolves around the man, encourage masculinity, and so this is the Bible is for men, and so that's why I believe we do that. In straight way, there's an order. Men are the head. The head of every woman is man. The head of every man is Christ, and the head of Christ is the Father. So I think just the way that we got to do, we stay in our place. We got order.
All right. Brother Vernon.
Yes, sir.
What saith you? Why is it that men are having trouble today being masculine?
I have to piggyback off of my brother Kabir. I think it's all a part of the grand scheme of things, being as the Hasatan is the god of this world, and him being a fag himself, loving men. It's a part of the grand design. When I was coming up, it was about being a pimp, getting these women to go out and make the money for you. And it just snowballed from there. And now it's a cool thing to have a woman take care of the man. The man want to sit at home and play Xbox instead of going out and playing his role. So my sentiment is it's a part of the grand scheme to usher in the coming of the Messiah.
All right. Brother Gideon.
Yes, sir.
What seems to be the trouble today and why men are not masculine the way that they should be?
I would say that men do not take on personal responsibility. They don't build anything, and they expect everything to be given to them. And because of those reasons, that's why men are not being men today. If more men take on the responsibility for themselves and their families, then this feministic agenda will be dead.
Very good, very good. Brother David.
Yes, sir.
What saith you?
I think because at least my generation, we grew up in a hypersexualized society through the media, through the school system. I mean, the way that growing up, even for myself, seeing how women were dressed in school, and I can only imagine how it looks now. I mean, I'm 10 years removed from high school at this point, but I see a lot of the effects of obviously not having the father in the house, and then also, even if you did have a father in the house, a lot of them are effeminate fathers, and they just continue the cycle, and that's pretty much what I guess I can say.
You said something very key there, a hyper-sexualized society. I spoke to that because today it's nothing for people out here. They call it dating. If you go out on a date, okay, you're guaranteed it's going to end up in sex.
Right.
It guarantee is going to end up in sex. And the reason being is because nobody has actually taught this generation Nobody's actually taught it. And so you end up having women out there that's been turned more times than a doorknob.
Right.
And then you have men out there that's done bedded all these women, thereby inserting their DNA into them. And in doing this, causing trouble for successive generations. Because what do you have out of that? You have babies born, and nobody has a covenant commitment of marriage.
Correct.
Which that's going to stand a chance that these women are going to be raising children by themselves,
right,
because these men don't want to take care of their responsibilities, like Brother Gideon said, and they becoming feminized, just like Brother Vernon said. Are you follow me?
Yeah.
And nobody is there to teach the patriarchal rule, like Brother Kabir says.
Right.
I mean, I can go all the way around on all points, and it's just sad because we don't. So if we don't have any examples to sit them down to teach them and stop following after the way of this world, then it's going to continue. The problem's going to continue to keep growing,
right,
more and more and more and more. And so it's very important that we have a generation that is of men that will
right,
teach these people, teach these young men when they're young, and these young women when they are young girls, young boys,
right,
outside of the influence of the public school system, outside of the influence of this world, outside the influence of TV and the internet.
right.
They need to learn these principles, these virtues at home based on men who are Yah-fearing.
Right.
Elder Rufus,
Yes, sir.
what says you?
Pastor, you said actually everything that I was going to go down that road about the sexual part, because these women have allowed all these men to come in and insert their DNA in them. So now the women actually, because they got all these DNAs of all these different men, want to act like men. And then they're having all these babies and they're having boys, and then these boys are just around all these women, their grandmothers, their sisters, their moms, their aunts. So they become extremely effeminate. And then they go out and do the same thing that the other men do, and they just sleeping around with the women. And now they're sleeping around with each other, which was prophesied. Now you got a lazy society where nobody wants to fulfill any level of role that they're supposed to be in, and you got nobody teaching them because all the roles have been flopped around and flipped around. So you got women that look like men and act like men out here, and you got men that look like women and act like women out here. And that's just the state that we're at, but it's prophesied. So, this was expected, and you need to prepare for it. And the main problem we're having is, you just said it, who's teaching? There's nobody teaching. And then when you do, like from this conference, when you do have someone in your midst that will teach you and show you and live it and be an example for you to follow, because everything's flipped around, nobody wants to gravitate towards that. You saw that when you start preaching and you start putting these manly things out there. All the men cowered down, and all the women, It was because those were the men in today responding from a female's body, and the women cowering from the man's body. It was just evidence. So it's just pretty sad, but it was prophesied. So those that really care, they'll get around a patriarchal ministry. They'll get around you and the men of Straightway and follow it. That's what they'll do if they want to be saved and have eternal life, like you spoke about yesterday.
There's another thing I picked up on in this society right here that most people are not discerning and speaking to, and it's this. When you have men out there that have at least started off the right way by actually having affection for women, and then these women becoming men because they having so in nature, in attitude, so much DNA inserted in them. They're doing everything under the sun. A woman is only designed for one man. And whenever a man's DNA is inserted in her, it changes her forever. And she starts acting like a man. And when she starts acting like a man, when she goes out on a date of a man, if that was a man that was a little sensitive towards a woman, you know what happens? He experiences rejection. And in that rejection, his manhood is tore down. And then rather than actually having his heart and mind, his constitution towards women, homosexuality comes into play. And then he ends up having more feelings for these men because all these rejected men understand each other. And then they become effeminized. And that's why another reason why we see this homosexual agenda taking root and taking place. I totally disagree with it. Totally disagree with it. But who's going to stop the bloodletting if we don't get out here and start making videos like this? Exactly. Because everybody knows what the Bible says. Sodomy is an abomination. Period. Point blank. I'm talking about man on man. Period. Point blank. And you think about this for a second. Rejected men get into their feelings. Their feelings become even more soft. They become effeminized. And in that effeminization, they begin to speak to each other about their little problems and their rejections. They end up growing a spiritual fondness for each other. And the next thing you know, they're turned out. Down low.
Christian church.
Down low.
Christian pastors.
And like you said, Elder Rufus, in the meeting, you can see that men today, when a real man stands up, they start despising and rejecting him. Stuff like this. We need to continue to keep having talks like this. All right? I want y'all to have a wonderful day.